So I'm Gaetan Siew. I'm architect by profession. I studied architecture, but
Mhm.
in France. And then this led me to work a lot on cities and on planning of cities, which is
Mhm.
like a natural um, development between buildings. You move to space, which is a larger
Mhm.
environment and territory. S- Um, then the second thing you asked me is what do I do or what do I like about the profession? Yes.
Yes.
What do I,
Mhm.
well, what is architecture is quite uh, to make it short and to clarify the subject. Just think of any activity you do every
Mhm.
day in life, from your house, you move to school, then maybe in the weekend or in the afternoon, you move to some other place to do some sports or to a restaurant to have some leisure with family. Every single
Yeah.
space, every single area, it's a human activity. It's a different human activity. And this is what
Mhm.
we do. We design places for human activity. That is, everything you do has been a place that was some architect did some work before you enter the place. Whether you go to see a film in a cinema, to do some
Mhm.
shopping, to go and eat some food, or in an office where people work, or in a school where you do your studies. All these places are designed by architects. So at the end of the day, it's a play, it's an activity, it's a profession that has to know how people live and how people what are the requirements of each activity so that we can design it properly. So when you go, for example,
Mhm.
you go to school every day. When you arrive
Mhm.
at school, what you do? You meet up with your friends, you chat about what happened last night, etc. And then you move to your respective class, and a teacher comes in and deliver a lecture or
Mhm.
checks your homework or whatever, and there is an interaction between you and your teacher. So we have to sort of divide your timetable into time. And then we say, okay, in the first hour, this is how it happened. In the second hour, this is how it
Mhm.
happened. It has to be sheltered. You don't want outside noise to come in. You have to feel comfortable, etc., etc. And all
Yeah.
these things come into place. And then we integrate all this information into a box. I call it a box. But the most important thing is what is happening in the box, not the box.
Yeah.
And what is
Right.
happening in the box has to happen in the best way possible. But then this place has to be designed to be able to fit in
Wow,
with
that's a really nice way to put architecture and explain it. Yeah.
and it has to be designed like, in a budget according to rules. It has to withhold other
Mhm.
things when you're not at school. If there is a cyclone, it has to still be there the next
Yeah.
day. And all these things are part. And of course, today we are all aware of the environment and you
Yeah.
are conscious about it. So you have to use materials that will be as eco-friendly as possible and that will consume less energy as possible. Like if you ask me what is the green technology for comfort or for air conditioning, I will say simply just open your window
Yeah.
and let the air flow so that you
Yeah.
feel comfortable. But the window must be put in such a place that it allows the air to flow. It studies where the sun is coming, it studies where the wind is blowing and all. So this is about what we do. And for each activity, therefore, we
Wow.
must study what how it happens. If you go to see a sports, a volleyball match or a basketball match,
Mhm.
there is a chronology of all these things. We have to analyze it and then plan it. So what's exciting about it is that you have to be creative. And second, you have to learn each time a new thing, a new activity, and understand how it's going to happen. And you have to put it together and then design the place. Good.
Wow. That's a very nice way to put architecture and explain it. Using all these activities. Indeed. Could you tell us more about how you got into the field of architecture?
Oh. So, in these long time ago, we didn't know much, especially from Mauritius. No internet, no mails, no Google, no nothing. So you just have some books you read and you say, oh, maybe this might be interesting for you, etc. But to tell you frankly, when I went to France to study, I got a scholarship. I wasn't sure of what I was going to learn. And
Yeah.
then you discover things little by little, and then you sort of like it. And what I like is about your question. It's, some jobs might be repetitive during the whole lifetime. I don't know. Some people, maybe, for example, I would not be able to be a dentist. Every day I do the same thing from morning to evening and for 30 years of my life. And might be boring. Some may like it. You
Yeah.
relieve people of a lot of pain and you feel some satisfaction about it, but it depends. The good thing about this job, it's changing, it's evolving all the time, and you need to learn a lot of new things. So you keep on learning, but in any case, the key word in everything is people. No, you have to think of people, and this you learn little by little by observing people, how they live, how they work. And that's why buildings in different places, in different geographies, have a cultural dimension and do not look the same, because the climate is different, the culture is different, the whole context is different. So a school maybe in Bangladesh will not look the same as in South Africa or in Argentina. It's all
Yeah.
about kids, but it's different. It's different because of all these aspects. And this is interesting. So you don't get bored.
No, that's very interesting. So you really like that it's not the same work every day and you're always facing a new kind of challenge and a new kind of situation with all the different projects that you do.
Yes. And I think, and sometimes then there are some projects that are really appealing because it goes beyond the simple work you have done a few times, and one of the buildings, for example, I had designed is, I don't know if you know it, is the French
Yes,
Institute in Rosehill.
yes.
It's a very,
It's a
very open
beautiful
building.
building with a
Yes,
tree in the
but this
middle.
kind of
Yeah.
building is sort of, it's a one-off, you don't do two of
Yeah.
them. You don't do
Mm,
you may do 5 houses, even if they look different, but it's the same, it's a house. This one is a sort of a unique, but this sort of opportunity is fantastic because you have to sort of struggle with your own mind and then anticipate how they are going to use it, because I've never seen it before. And you don't know how they are going to use it. And then in time, because it was built like 10 years ago, and in time, you discover that they use it differently from what I have imagined. But that
mm,
was part of the brief. We had to have it very flexible, very
mm,
adaptable, so that in time it can evolve with the different uses, etc. But the nice thing which I like about it, it's very well integrated in functionally, one, but also
mm.
climate wise, and also even now, It's a totally open space. You don't need air conditioning
Yeah,
to do that. So you don't use
definitely.
energy, fossil fuel or whatever to use it. So this sort of thing is the interesting part of the job.
Yeah, that it sounds very interesting. Um, and finally, could you give your advice to kids or the next generation?
Well, I think that when I look at the job with respect to the young generation, the
Mhm.
Z, no, you are zillennials, I am told.
Gen Z, yes.
Gen Z, whatever. But I think what at the end of the day, after spending so much time doing this job, what I've learned is that, like many jobs, it's about problem solving. They give you a huge amount of data, of information on climate, on function of people, of cultural thing, of aesthetics, of environment, etc., etc. And then all of this has only one solution. That is one building, one shelter
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
will house, accommodate everything. So the job itself is like a problem solving thing, you know.
right.
And so this methodology, which we learn, the approach of how to do it, the how to,
Mhm.
is, I think, is applicable in any profession. In
Yeah.
your work, in your whatever you do, you have to analyze a lot of information, then think of it
Hmm.
together, see what is the priorities. Some are not priorities, some are very important. Then you decide, and then you tackle one by one, and it's interesting. So if you are the sort of person that
Mhm.
are able to observe a lot of things, a lot of data, read.
Mhm.
When you walk in the street, you look at everything, you're very curious and you want to learn. Or you learn so much just sitting down, having a coffee and watching people, that it's a second school for the rest of your life. And this is quite interesting. I love it when I travel. Probably you've traveled to some places. One of the things you always notice, because it's a different environment, is that you meet people. You just sit down. You watch the people walking by. Each one has a story behind, and each one is busy with some activity. But the whole place is full of stories, and if you put all the
Hmm.
stories together, then but this is the job. This is the job of an architect, to observe. And I think another job which is very close to that are writers. Probably
Hmm.
you do read a lot, anything, just a
Yeah.
comic book, a manga, or a novel, or whatever. But when you read, sometimes you fall on a description of a place or of people,
Right.
and it's so well described that you can imagine the place and the
Yeah.
scene in your mind. But this is what we do. Instead of
Yeah.
words, we put shapes and forms. We imagine this thing in real. huh? But the writer has a sort of gift of observation. They have observed so much detail, like, what kind of earring they are wearing, what kind of shoes is in, and whether the left shoe is tied or untied or
Or not.
whatever, is clean or non-clean. She has, or he has observed every single detail. But my profession is that with time, this is the sort of thing I always notice. When I see a person in the street, even just a glimpse, in 30 seconds, I can describe and write down what I've seen. And
Wow.
this is, I think, if you try to do the exercise when you walk anywhere into a new place, you will probably be surprised with your gift of observation.